In a world full of alien monsters that kill anyone they touch, magic begins to emerge in the city. Among the new magicians is our protagonist, who leaps across rooftops and reaches his friend Tommy, saying, "I'm sorry I'm late." We learn that this boy is Seth, and Tommy responds, "Seth, you waited a long time." Tommy tells him, "You said you'd show me your magic where no one could see us." Seth apologizes again and promises to make up for lost time by showing him his best magic. Tommy gets excited as Seth pulls out magic books, telling him, "I'm not supposed to let anyone see this, but this is a special occasion." Tommy asks if Seth took the books from his mom's library without permission, and Seth, shocked, replies, "As long as I return them before she notices, it's fine." Seth opens the book and tries the first spell, Meteor Shower, but nothing happens. Shocked, Seth hears Tommy say, "Nothing happened." Seth, anxious, searches for another spell and says, "Let's try this one," but again, nothing happens. Tommy, frustrated, says, "If you can't use magic, it's okay to admit it." Angered, Seth responds, "Forget those boring spells. I'll show you original magic I invented." He performs his magic, successfully lifting a huge rock, amazing Tommy. Unfortunately, the rock destroys a cow farm, and an angry herd charges at them. Seth and Tommy run, with Tommy exclaiming, "Trouble always happens with you, Seth." Seth tells him to run faster and stay quiet. The scene shifts to the city where a merchant tells a woman he's sold all his ropes and boards. The woman, Alma, witch and bounty hunter, senses he has some left and asks what his problem is with her. Frightened, the merchant pleads for no violence. Alma insists she hasn't done anything violent, but the merchant knows she's the witch who recently moved to the island's edge. He refuses to sell to her, fearing she'll use the materials to kidnap and sacrifice children. Alma denies this, stating she only wants to buy the items and has no intention of sacrificing him. She warns him to comply, or she'll blow up his shop. Terrified, the merchant quickly retrieves the items. Alma remarks he still had stock left. At this moment, Seth and Tommy are fleeing from the cows. Alma, angry, hears farmers blaming Seth for the trouble. Seth fears Alma's wrath, knowing she'll be furious. Alma glares at him, and Seth knows he's in trouble. Tommy criticizes Seth for never listening to him. Alma agrees that Seth is always in trouble and uses wind magic to stack the cows and stop Seth and Tommy. Seth is in pain, but Alma tells him he hasn't seen real pain yet. Alma scolds Seth for causing trouble, and he admits to accidentally throwing the rock towards the farm. Alma warns he'll be punished at home. Suddenly, someone throws a rock at Alma, accusing her of ruining their village. The farm owner complains about his destroyed farm, and villagers express their frustration with Alma and Seth's presence. Seth tries to explain that he caused the destruction, not Alma. The villagers angrily dismiss his explanation, not wanting any magicians around. Alma offers to pay for the damages, but silences Seth, saying words won't help now. She takes Seth away, who is upset and blames himself. Alma confirms the situation is worse than he thinks and reminds him how many times she told him people fear them. They return to their flying house, where Alma makes Seth clean the walls, despite his complaints. She reminds him of his past mistakes, setting fields on fire, drying up the lake, and destroying the farm with a giant rock, making the villagers their enemies. She forbids him from going to the island for a while. Seth asks how long, and Alma sternly warns him not to cause any more trouble or he'll be arrested and executed. She knows he takes her magic books without permission, shocking Seth. Alma orders him not to do it again. Seth argues he only wants to become a skilled magician quickly. Alma yells at him to shut up, saying he can't even behave properly yet. Seth grumbles about being treated like a child, and Alma warns him to keep quiet and continue cleaning if he wants to be treated as an adult. Seth continues cleaning and asks why she took the blame. Alma explains that people see them as nemesis monsters that bring destruction, essentially viewing them as monsters. Seth insists she's not a monster, but Alma says people don't want anything they don't understand. Seth argues that Alma fights nemesis monsters, but she believes the situation would be different if all nemesis creatures disappeared. She yells at Seth not to think about strange ideas as they only cause trouble. At that moment, Alma feels intense pain, and Seth calls for her help to use the bathroom. Alma coldly tells him it's not her problem, shocking Seth. He screams, and later, in his room, reads about the monsters, realizing that if they disappeared, it could solve the problem, as magicians wouldn't need to fight anymore. Seth gets excited, determined to become a powerful magician like Alma. The next day, he practices spells from Alma's books but fails and burns his hand. Tommy advises Seth to stop, reminding him of Alma's scolding. Seth insists he's doing it to get back at her. Tommy shares that his mom forbade him from playing with magicians, but doesn't know why, saying it's what the village elders said. Seth argues they don't understand the wonders of magic. Tommy suggests tools are faster, but Seth believes he'll improve with practice and become a strong magician to fight nemesis monsters. Surprised, Tommy asks if he wants to be a nemesis hunter. Seth confirms, believing everyone will be happy if the monsters vanish. Tommy, unfamiliar with the monsters, listens as Seth recalls Alma saving their village from monsters when he was young, amidst flames. Seth vows to defeat all nemesis monsters one day, feeling pathetic if he lets her do it alone. Suddenly, something falls from the sky, and Tommy and Seth are astonished to see a giant egg. Seth recognizes it from a monster book, realizing it's a monster egg heading towards the village. Tommy urges Seth to alert Alma, but she's away fighting a monster on another island. Seth tells Tommy to lead the villagers to safety while he fights the monster as a magician. The egg crashes into the village, causing confusion among the villagers. Seth returns home to arm himself with weapons, declaring he's ready. However, he's too heavy with gear and can't fly, falling instead. Tommy warns the villagers, but they panic, saying only Alma can handle the monster. Seth lands, thinking he'd die, and asks the villagers about the monster. They point out he's standing on the egg. Nervous, Seth realizes and asks about Alma. The villagers tell him Alma should handle it, but Seth insists he can defeat the monster alone. The egg hatches, and a giant monster emerges, causing the villagers to flee. Seth attacks but fails, then uses a magic sword, which breaks instantly. Shocked, Seth is struck hard by the monster. Tommy, worried, runs to help. Seth acknowledges the monster's strength. As the monster targets Tommy, Seth shields him with his body, asking if he's okay, calling his action reckless. Seth urges Tommy to escape, but Tommy hesitates, seeing Seth weaken. Tommy seeks the villagers' help, but they're hiding, scared of the monster. Seth keeps resisting until a powerful magician appears, attacking the monster. A group of magicians, led by their commander, asks if Seth is okay, calling his solo attack reckless. Seth, surprised, realizes they are magicians too. The wizard replies to him, "Of course, boy." At that moment, the monster rises again, and the wizard tells his team that they must quickly get rid of the monster. Two members of the team launch a powerful attack on the monster, restraining it. The villagers and Seth are astonished by the team's strength. The team leader says that this magic will keep the monster immobilized for a while. Seth asks them, "Who are you?" The leader replies, "We are 4 monster hunters, you can call us the Brave Quartet." The leader tells the villagers that he is here to save them from the monster. One of the villagers, surprised, says, "To save us?" The leader responds, "If you want to live, you must follow my instructions." We learn that the team leader's name is Don. Seth, astonished, says it's the first time he's seen other wizards besides Alma. Seth asks Don if he can join the fight. Don, surprised, says, "Seth, I acted recklessly earlier, but I am a true wizard." Seth replies, "I've been training to fight the nemesis." Don responds, "I understand, you've impressed me, boy. The courage you showed fighting the monster alone earned my respect." Don adds, "Perhaps it's the will that brought us together. We're friends now." Seth asks, "Does that mean I can fight with you?" The villagers say they can't trust Seth because he always causes trouble for the village. Seth feels upset by their words, but Don interrupts, telling them there's no need to speak that way. Don removes his hat, revealing strange horns, and says, "He's a wizard like me, and I trust this boy." Don tells the villagers to stop wasting time. The monster won't be restrained for long. He instructs them to evacuate quickly. A villager mentions that people are still in their homes. Tommy thinks about his parents. Don assures them that they will handle the evacuation but will need someone to distract the monster. Don asks Seth if he can do it. Seth eagerly replies, "Of course. I never expected to be bait. I can defeat the monster." Don laughs, "That's what I wanted to hear, but remember, you mustn't be reckless and retreat at the right time. You can't solve problems with brute force alone. You need to act wisely. That's what it means to be a true wizard." Seth responds, "Yes, sir." The time is running out, and the monster is about to break free. The team goes to evacuate the village, and Don tells Seth, "I trust you, boy." Tommy calls out to Seth. A villager shouts that Tommy's father is still in the bank. Tommy replies, "I'm on it." Seth prepares to face the monster, deciding to use his magic this time. The monster breaks free, and Seth attacks, but the giant easily blocks it. The monster quickly retaliates, and Seth narrowly escapes. Seth remembers Don's words and says he now understands. Meanwhile, Tommy is looking for his father. A man tells Tommy's father that a nemesis monster is in the village. Everyone is shocked. Tommy's father tells the mayor they must gather important documents and evacuate. Don and his team arrive, and Tommy's father asks who they are. Don speaks sinisterly, "Why are people still here? You need to leave quickly." Seth distracts the monster, leading it through the town. Suddenly, Seth pulls a chain, restraining the monster and knocking it down. Seth says, "You can't hurt anyone now." He scolds the monster for destroying the village and throws a small rock at it. The monster, enraged, prepares a powerful attack. Seth dodges, but the monster's attack causes significant destruction. Alma, returning home, irritated about being called for what she thought was a false alarm, senses something is wrong and rushes back, telling Seth not to do anything reckless. The monster is still restrained, and Seth barely escaped the attack. He hears Tommy's scream. Don's team ties up the villagers and loots the bank. Don tells the villagers not to cause trouble. A villager calls them villains for exploiting the situation. A woman regrets trusting the wizards. Don tells them not to blame him too much. He did help them escape the monster. He accuses the villagers of not wanting to leave. He says he understands their feelings but tells them to surrender to their fate. The team gathers all the money, declaring they are rich. They laugh, and Don says he can't stop laughing. Seth enters, surprising Don. Don says, "It's the brave boy." Don tells Seth, "You helped us a lot by distracting the monster while we amassed a fortune." The villagers think Seth is with Don's team. The mayor and an old woman suspect Seth due to his connection with Tommy and his father working at the bank. Seth yells at Don and his team, accusing them of not being real nemesis hunters. Don laughs, admitting they exploit monster attacks for theft. Seth feels betrayed, recalling Don's earlier words about trust. Don mocks Seth, calling him a fool who likes to hear such words. Seth angrily asks why they did this, stating that wizards are supposed to kill monsters. Don says there's no value in fighting for people who accuse wizards of causing all bad things, treating them like plague carriers, only relying on them during monster attacks, and then turning them over to the Inquisition. A villager accuses the wizards of attracting the monsters. Tommy's father calls Seth scum for involving him and his son. Don tells Seth, "You hear them? You fought until you were injured, and all they do is hurl insults at you. They won't even thank you. You think you're in the same world as them, but to them, we're like monsters." Don tells Seth that he'll only be betrayed if he tries to be a hero. Don's team asks what to do with Seth. Don tells Seth that soon he'll understand they are similar. Seth, angry, insists they are not the same. The monster breaks free and heads toward the bank. Don's team plans to leave quickly. The villagers plead not to be left to die, asking to be untied. Don says goodbye, calling them wretched humans. He tells Seth to crawl away if he can to avoid death. The villagers scream in fear as the monster reaches the bank. Tommy cries, and Seth assures him everything will be alright. Seth stands up, determined not to let anyone die. He remembers Don's words but says they are not alike. He wants to be a great wizard who protects everyone. The monster unleashes a powerful attack. Don's team watches from afar, believing the villagers are doomed. Don calls Seth foolish. Suddenly, they see Seth resisting the powerful attack. Don is shocked, saying it's impossible since Seth barely knows magic. Then, Seth also launches a powerful attack on the monster and finishes it off completely. Everyone is shocked by Seth's success in defeating the monster. Don says, "How could he use magic with his bare hands like that?" A boy from the team says, "Let's escape quickly, boss, since we can." All the villagers are astonished, and then a man calls out to Seth, saying the situation isn't over yet. Seth looks around and sees that the monster is still alive and regenerating, but it can't move. At that moment, Alma arrives and finishes off the monster for good. As Seth feels reassured by Alma's arrival, he faints from exhaustion. Alma catches him before he falls to the ground and tells him to rest, saying, "You're really amazing." Later, Seth wakes up in his bed, aching and surprised to be at home. Alma says, "You finally woke up," and he asks her what happened to the monster, the villagers, and Don's team. She tells him he just woke up and starts yelling again. She explains that she defeated the monster, the villagers are fine, and she captured Don's team. Then she tells him, "I told you not to use magic with your bare hands again." Seth replies, "We defeated the monster, so it's okay." She says, "No, listen carefully. The Inquisition hates anyone who is not ordinary, especially those connected to magic. The villagers contacted them right now while we're talking." Seth says, "No, they wouldn't do that." Alma then recalls Don's team saying, "Get us out of here, old lady." She scared them and told them to shut up. She then looks at the embarrassed villagers. Afterward, Tommy goes to Alma and hands her Seth's gloves. She asks if he took them from him, and he says yes. Alma thanks him, and then Tommy thanks her for saving them and tells her to tell Seth he was amazing. Alma then makes tea and says to Seth, "You've seen this situation many times. Wizards, injured people, and ordinary humans will never understand each other." Seth replies, "Then I'll defeat all the monsters myself." Alma is shocked and asks, "What are you saying?" He says, "If I defeat them all, no one will get hurt anymore, people won't be scared, and wizards won't have to hide." She tells him not to be silly, asking if he understands how many monsters there are in the world. He says, "I'll find their nest and destroy it." She asks, "You mean Radiant?" He says, "What's Radiant?" She explains it's the place believed to be the monster nest, but it's just a legend. No one knows if it exists. Seth says they won't know until they search for it and tells them to use their heads for once. She says if it really existed, someone would have found it years ago. Seth says the monsters come in eggs, so it must exist. Alma tells him to stop talking about silly dreams. Seth is surprised and asks how she can say that. She tells him monsters are not their only enemies in this world, and he knows that. She then tells him not to worry about it. If he wants to destroy all the monsters badly, she'll let him help her next time. Seth asks if the villagers will fear and try to drive them out every time. She says that's likely. He gets upset and asks why they treat them like villains even though they protect them from monsters. Alma tells him she won't allow him to be a villain. That's her role, not his. She remembers saving Seth from monsters when he was young and taking him to her desert ship. She searched for his family, but no one knew anything about him. Eventually, she accepted the reality, and he lived with her. One day, she told him to stay while she fought the monsters, leaving him alone. While he was playing alone, some kids started hitting and bullying him. Seth asked them why they were hitting him when he did nothing wrong. They kept beating him while he cried and screamed. They thought he was evil, and the villagers wanted to burn him at the stake. Alma suddenly appeared and saved him from them. The next day, Seth woke up wanting to go out. Alma was waiting at the door and told him she knew where he wanted to go. He said she couldn't stop him. She handed him his magic broom and told him to keep it in case he needed it. Seth couldn't believe his eyes, and she also gave him his gloves, making him promise not to be evil. He agreed and promised to be the best wizard in the world. As he left, he ran back to hug her, crying and thanking her. She told him to take care of himself, and he said okay before leaving. Alma cried because she would miss him. Seth then said goodbye to all the villagers as he flew away. A few days later, a man tells Alma that this island is very remote and that he searched a lot before finding it. Alma replies that she sent the request 3 days ago, and he's just now coming. He says he sent his assistant first to meet her, a girl with red hair, and asks if she didn't come. Alma says no one came and tells him not to make excuses. The man wonders if she got lost on the way again. He asks Alma about his rewards, and she says he'll get a reward for bringing the monster remains and calls him stingy, saying she knows everything well. He agrees and suggests they collect the rest of the monster before the Inquisition arrives. They get on his ship and leave. Alma thinks it has indeed been 3 days since Seth left and hopes he is okay. Meanwhile, Seth is fighting a group of soldiers, hitting them. He asks them why they want to arrest him. The ship's captain asks what's happening, and a guard says Seth hit their ship. The chief guard says Seth blocked their ship's path. The captain says Seth looks like trouble and wants to investigate him. All the guards surround and hold Seth. The captain focuses on Seth's horns, and then Seth gets angry at the soldiers holding him and throws them away with a magic attack. The captain asks if he is a wizard, and Seth replies that he is but still in training. The captain calls him stupid. Seth angrily replies, calling the captain and everyone else stupid, which is what Alma always says. The captain tells the head guard, "This boy looks ignorant. Haven't the news of the new laws reached these remote places yet?" The head guard tells Seth, "Boy, you're using magic in front of us. If you don't have something to prove your identity, we have no choice but to arrest you." Seth says, "But I didn't do anything wrong." The captain responds, "But you might in the future." "I'm sorry, these are the new laws. We are inspectors, and it's our duty to enforce the law everywhere." At that moment, the guards attack Seth and arrest him. Seth is in the cage, frustrated, and sees his bag with the guard. He says, "Give it to me," but the guard ignores him. Seth hits the cage, hurting himself. He says the cage makes his magic not work at all. The captain tells him the cage is made of black silver, which completely prevents magic. He says, "We're always ready for people like you." Seth asks, "What are you going to do to me?" The head guard responds, "You'll spend 10 years in the capital's prison." Seth is shocked and says, but I haven't found Radiant yet. The head guard is surprised. The captain says it's a mythical story among magicians. It's said to be where the nemesis monsters come from. The head guard asks Seth if he really believes that place exists. Seth says, of course, I'm going there to kill all the nemesis monsters. The head guard says he's just trying to escape by saying anything. The captain says, no, he's just a fool. Seth says, who are you calling a fool? He's about to repeat Alma's words when the captain interrupts, I've heard this before. I'm advising you, don't say that word everywhere. It's forbidden. Don't add more accusations against you. Behave well. The head guard tells the captain, he's right, magicians are cursed. The captain agrees, yes, anyone who survives an encounter with monsters gets cursed, and strange things appear like those horns. This makes others hate them. But this curse indicates they can use magic. Seth says, what are you talking about? Magicians aren't like that at all. The captain leaves, and they move Seth to another place. Seth says he's in big trouble, which is why Alma always told him to hide his horns. He remembers talking with Alma, asking where he should go. She tells him to go to the city of Artemis. He's confused, and she calls him stupid, saying, how will you reach Radiant without any clues to search for? He asks if he'll find clues there. She says she doubts anyone knows anything, but it's the best option. He asks what kind of city it is. She says it's where all magician research gathers. She tells him to go to a person named Yaga, one of the most powerful magicians, who might know something. She tells him to avoid the yellow cat's eyes. Suddenly, Seth remembers and sees a magical creature in front of him. He's startled and hides the creature in the hair of a girl in the cage next to him. The girl says, good morning. He says, my name is Seth, and you? She says, I'm Mealy. I was going to Island 21 in Pompo but got lost on the way. Seth says, that's where I lived. The girl is happy and says she was going there for the Nemesis corpse. Seth is surprised and asks who she is. She says she's a magician from Artemis. Seth is happy to hear she's from Artemis. He's surprised when the magical creature comes out of her hair again. The girl says, this is Mr. Booby. Seth asks if it's her pet. Mr. Booby gets angry. Mealy says, no, he's my friend. Seth asks if she got arrested even though she's a magician from Artemis. She says it's because she's still an apprentice and got separated from the only person who could verify her identity. She says she'll be fine when they come for her. Seth says he understands. Mealy notices his horns and says they're beautiful. Seth is happy. She asks if magic comes out of them, like shooting beams. He says, no. She says that's really sad. Seth gets frustrated and says, what kind of weirdos are we dealing with? Mealy laughs and is about to shake his hand when suddenly there's a big explosion. The man who was with Alma shows his ID. He thinks if they find out he's carrying the monster's remains. At that moment, Mealy sees him and says, you came for me. The man is nervous and asks, what are you doing here? She says she told them she was going to get the monster's remains, so they locked her up. The head guard asks the man if he knows the girl. The man nervously says, no, not at all. The captain asks about his cargo, saying it's the monster from Island 21. The captain says the man saved them the trouble and orders him to be thrown in jail too. They lock him up as well. Mealy asks him why he got arrested. He says it's because of her. Seth asks, who is he? She says, that's Doc, and I'm his assistant. Doc gets angry and asks if she got arrested because she told them she was taking the monster's remains. She says they asked her. Doc gets angry, saying, what do we do now? Seth asks if Doc went to Island Pompo. Doc asks who he is. Seth says he's the one who defeated the monster and asks if Doc is also a magician from Artemis. Doc says, I'm not a magician, I'm a researcher. He says he knew there were remains, so he went to get them. If they're in good condition, he'll get a good reward, but they're useless if they're torn apart. Seth says he didn't tear them apart. Seth asks why Doc doesn't hunt them himself. Doc says it's clear the effort and hard work involved. He couldn't handle any of it. You magicians can deal with it. The monsters fall from the sky like rain, and you magicians hunt them easily. Doc says magicians' roles are very important. Seth says he has a solution for all of it. Doc asks what it is. Seth says he'll destroy Radiant. Doc is surprised, and Mealy laughs, saying she's never heard anyone talk so crazily before. Doc says it's just a myth. Seth says it doesn't matter, he promised Alma. Doc asks if he's Alma's student. Seth says no, she's like his mother. Seth says the important thing is that Doc will take them to Artemis. Doc asks how they're supposed to go now, in these cages. At that moment, Mr. Booby brings the cell keys, and they escape the cages. But Doc is nervous, saying if they're caught, they'll be executed. Seth says, what are you whining about? Let's go quickly. They sneak out, looking for their belongings to escape, but the captain sees them. He says, "Wouldn't it have been better if you stayed where you were? No one escapes my sight." They try to convince him to let them go, but the captain orders the guards to arrest them. Seth attacks and defeats the soldiers. The soldiers attack Seth again, but Mealy blocks the attack easily. Seth tells her she's amazing. She says defensive magic is her specialty. The soldiers attack again with arrows, destroying the shield. Then they attack Seth and Mealy with swords. Just when they're about to capture them, Mealy's personality changes, and she destroys the soldiers. Seth asks Doc what happened to Mealy. Doc says it's because of her curse. When she gets angry, it activates. Mealy defeats all the soldiers, but then the captain suddenly points an arrow at her head. Seth attacks and saves them. They escape from the soldiers. The captain notices Seth using magic with his bare hands. The team then arrives at the city of Artemis. Seth arrives in the city with them and is amazed by everything. They head to the inspection area, and Mealy tells him they have to pass through here first before entering Artemis. The supervisor asks if it's his first time here, and Seth replies, yes. She then asks if he's with someone from Artemis, and he says, yes, with document. She then asks if this respectable man will be his guardian and if he plans to stay here permanently. Mealy explains that to work as a hunter or do anything, one must be a resident. Seth says he's here just to find Yaga and isn't interested in staying. Doc gets excited and tells him he needs to be a resident for Yaga to agree to meet him. Seth asks the supervisor about the upcoming acceptance ceremony, and she tells him it will begin soon. Doc quickly takes him to the ceremony. Seth is mesmerized by the city, and Mealy tells him it's the only place in the world called the Sorcerer's Paradise. Seth asks if this means sorcerers don't have a hard time here, and Doc tells them they might miss the acceptance ceremony and the next one is in a week. Doc asks if Seth wants to find Yaga quickly, and Seth says yes, as Alma instructed. Mealy tells Seth the ceremony is held at the castle, and Seth tells Doc to hurry up. Doc says only Seth needs to go, but Seth grabs Doc and runs with him. A sorcerer pops out of a pot and mentions hearing Alma's name earlier. Seth arrives at the castle and is surprised to learn that the city's founder is a yellow cat named Majesty. The city's leader tricks them into signing debt papers. They find out the ceremony involves beginners signing a contract to owe the academy. Doc is happy Seth got tricked but is shocked when the leader says Doc, as Seth's guardian, is responsible for repaying the debt. Doc falls to the ground, crying. Mealy asks what's wrong, and Seth recalls Alma's warning about not trusting the yellow cat. Seth asks Mealy if the same happened to her, and she says yes, but she wasn't good with formalities and forgot the debt. Seth says it doesn't matter, they don't have to follow the cat's orders. Doc says no, the debt is his responsibility. Seth apologizes to Doc but insists he must meet Yaga to find the Radiant and leave immediately. Seth runs quickly, taking Doc and Mealy with him. They start looking for Yaga in the city and encounter a free path and a paid one. Seth immediately takes the paid path, increasing their debt. Doc screams about the rising costs. A woman gives Seth a towel, increasing their debt further, and Doc continues to scream. They enter a place, and Doc warns them not to order drinks. Seth orders milk immediately when the hostess asks, increasing the debt again. Mealy asks someone about Yaga, who treats her like a child, making her destroy the place out of frustration. They still don't find Yaga. Suddenly, someone pops out of a vase and asks if they're looking for Yaga. They tell him to show them quickly. He asks what they plan to do with Yaga. Seth says he wants to ask about the Radiant and then destroy it completely. The man says not to be fooled, there is no Radiant. Seth insists he must reach the Radiant. The man says he's Yaga. The next day, Seth goes to Mealy and asks her to teach him magic. Mealy asks why he wants to learn now, and he says because he met Yaga, who told him he needs immense power to reach the Radiant. Mealy is happy Seth trusts her but says she can't teach him. Seth thanks her and says he'll learn on his own. They go to Doc, who blames himself for bringing Seth along. Doc agrees to help Seth train only for Alma's sake. He says he'll only teach him to read spell books. Seth says that's great and asks to learn the comet spell. Doc agrees to look it up in the book. After teaching him, Seth says it isn't working even though he did everything as instructed. Seth tries again, and it works perfectly. Seth and Mealy then practice spells on each other. Seth goes to Yaga and tells him he's ready to go to the Radiant. Yaga hits him and says he's very naive, even the strongest sorcerers couldn't reach it. At that moment, a monster appears and swallows Doc into the drain. They think it's a nemesis that appeared in the drain. Yaga tells them they still seem like amateurs. He explains it's a demon fish called a kraken fish, which thrives on strength. Doc wakes up to find the monster drinking his coffee. Yaga tells Seth to consider it training and fight the monster. Seth and Mealy go down to save Doc but struggle with the monster. Seth returns to Yaga, who asks if he's giving up. Seth says no, he has to save his friend. They go back to Doc, who tells them not to rescue him because it would make him look bad in front of his lady, Miss Melba. Seth tells him to snap out of it because the monster will eat him. Finally, Seth rescues Doc, who is overjoyed that Seth did all this for him. They find out Doc and the monster, named Devi, become coffee buddies, and the monster befriends the whole team. They return to Melba's cafe, and Mealy tells Seth he was amazing yesterday. Seth says he couldn't have defeated the monster without her help and needs to get stronger. Yaga suddenly appears as usual, startling the team. Yaga tells Seth he's weak and Seth asks Yaga to train him more. Yaga smiles evilly and says he plans to, telling Seth not to give up yet. Melba arrives, making Doc happy. He tells her he forgot to thank her for yesterday, saying her coffee is the best he's ever had. Embarrassed, he says he'd be delighted to live with someone who makes such delicious coffee. He's shocked to learn that the puppet father will make his coffee from now on. Yaga begins teaching Seth magic and gives him new gloves, explaining they are made of black silver and naturally block magic. Seth gets angry and tries to remove them, which results in him getting shocked. Seth asks, "What's the point of these? I can't train like this." Yaga responds, "In your current state, you're not capable of training. What kind of magic did you use today? I've never seen someone use magic so recklessly. You gather magic randomly, damaging your magical tools. I don't want to teach someone so reckless." Seth is confused and says, "Does this mean I'm strong but just reckless? What's wrong with that?" Yaga retorts, "What do you want from this strength?" They discuss the true meaning of strength, and Yaga says, "You won't take off these gloves until you understand true strength." Seth asks, "What if I take them off?" Yaga replies, "I'll expel you." Seth remains frustrated all day from Yaga's words. At this moment, Doc rushes in, telling them that the yellow cat has sent a summons and they must go quickly. The cat tells them they now have the highest debts in the Academy's history. Seth and Millie, the two dim-witted ones, are happy about this. Seth yells at them, "Do you think this is something to celebrate? These debts are on me, and it's all because of you, Set." The cat says he considers all residents of Artemis as his children, but even a father can't take care of everyone, and this is really bad. Therefore, they must be expelled. He tells them the solution is to pay all their debts immediately, which they can't do. They end up having to clean the city's tower from the outside, while Doc turns a wheel inside, pushing through fatigue by imagining himself with his beloved Melba. Set and Millie finish cleaning but are shocked by something flying in the sky. Millie says, "That's the direction of the savings." It turns out to be Veer Dawn trying to steal the city's money. Seth recognizes them as the four thieves and says, "Didn't the old man lock you up?" They reply that escaping from the island was easy and they've escaped from them with ease. Millie sees them in swimming suits and laughs, but Seth says, "They are thieves, Millie. Go back quickly." Millie uses powerful magic on them, but the thieves are unaffected because their suits are made of magic-resistant gloves. After Seth and Millie think they've defeated them, the thieves come back. Mr. Bopuri messes up Don's face, making him fall from the ship. Seth jumps after him, catches him, and captures him. Seth later goes to apologize to Yaga because he couldn't keep his promise and took off the gloves. Millie defends Seth and explains the reason, but Seth tells her not to worry. He's happy with what he did and will find another way even if he gets expelled. Yaga says he won't expel him because of the man he saved. He gives Seth gloves and says, "Keep these, they will help you utilize your innate abilities." Over time, it's revealed that this was all a plan by the cat to capture the thieves. They go to a restaurant, and Yaga says there's no new information about the town inspectors. Seth asks, "You mean the people from the inspection unit?" Seth says he doesn't know much about them, but they see them as enemies. Yaga replies, "You're really foolish. They're just humans too." Millie asks, "What do you mean?" "They're all different from each other." Yaga agrees, "Yes, just like we are different from each other. We need to understand this well before we fight them. They will always force you to make mistakes." On the other side of the story, the leader is fishing, saying he can't catch anything. His deputy joins him, and at that moment, the deputy causes the leader to lose his catch. The leader jokes, "You won't have dinner tonight, deputy." The deputy is shocked, and the leader says he was just joking. The deputy comments that it's the leader's role to provide food and supplies. The leader admits he didn't expect to remain on high alert for so long. The deputy replies, "That's why you pursue your hobby, passing the time and providing food at the same time." The leader jokes, "You don't like fish much, do you?" The deputy replies, "Fish is my favorite." Both the leader and deputy are happy to catch a big fish, which amazes the guards. One guard asks his colleague, "What's up?" The colleague explains, "Is the leader always like this?" The colleague answers, "He seems irresponsible, right?" The first guard agrees. The colleague adds, "Tomorrow, you'll see how amazing he is." They continue working quickly, and the guard thinks that everyone says the leader is truly amazing and known for his sharp eyes. He expected a lot when he was assigned here, but seeing this behavior was unexpected. During dinner, the leader cooks the food himself, surprising the guards. They enjoy the delicious seafood dishes. The newbie guard reflects on how it's his first time seeing a leader cook for his team. He thinks the leader must have other skills since they are supposed to be an inspection unit fighting strong wizards. As night falls, the leader notes the strong winds and helps the newbie retrieve his flying clothes. The leader asks if he's responsible for the laundry today, and the newbie confirms. The leader hands him back his cloak and asks about his presence here. The newbie says he was just reading. The leader apologizes for disappointing him and explains the rumors about his sharp eyes. The leader talks with the newbie until he notices it will rain soon. Indeed, it rains, and the guards, along with the deputy, work to support the ship so it doesn't sink. The guards are blown away by the strong winds. The leader says they will regret it if they don't stop at an island soon. The storm passes, leaving the soldiers exhausted. The newbie guard reflects on how they spent the whole night repairing the ship. He had imagined the job would involve catching evil wizards. Two guards discuss Commander Connard from Sand Island, predicting he'll get promoted again. The newbie guard realizes that Commander Connard and Sand Island are entirely different from their leader. The leader and deputy continue repairing the ship. The deputy apologizes for needing the leader's help, and the leader says it's fine and suggests they finish and eat quickly. The deputy agrees, addressing him respectfully. At that moment, a soldier rushes to the leader, reporting that they received a signal from another unit in a different area. Their ship is damaged, and they can't fly. They urgently need help because of a nemesis monster. Back at Melba's restaurant, Seth asks Yaga, "What do you mean? Are there good people in the inspection unit?" Yaga confirms, "Yes, and it's not just about the inspection unit. We can find good and bad people among wizards and ordinary people too. It depends on the person's character. Not all inspectors are evil, but they aren't friendly either." The atmosphere seemed friendly as the captain and his team reached the crew of the stranded ship. The captain greeted Captain Drago and his team, saying, "I heard you were attacked by Nemesis. I'm glad you're safe." Drago responded, "Yes, we were returning from a mission when the flying Nemesis attacked us. It was incredibly strong and caused significant damage to our ship, but under my command, we managed to fend off the beast." Drago then asked, "What happened to Nemesis?" The captain replied, "Why should I care? I need to deliver the mission fruits to headquarters immediately." Drago inquired, "You mean some kind of cargo?" The captain, seeing Drago's interest, said, "Since you're here, I'll show you," and revealed a large number of captured wizards. Drago was shocked by the sheer number, and the captain explained, they were all troubling citizens with their dark magic. The rookie guard was equally astonished, remarking, "That's expected from the inspector, always doing this." Drago then asked, "What do you want us to do now?" The captain replied, "Isn't it obvious?" After that, Drago's team began repairing the damaged ship, which the rookie disliked. Another guard remarked, "I know Captain Edmund's guards are injured, but he's a real tyrant. He's famous for capturing a large number of wizards every time." The rookie agreed, "Yes, he captured many in this mission." Another guard mentioned, "Captain Edmund used to serve under Commander Connard." The rookie was shocked and exclaimed, "The hero of Sandtown?" A guard added, "Don't forget that Captain Drago was Commander Connard's commander." The rookie thought to himself, "Isn't that why he lost the race for ranks?" The deputy then yelled at the team to finish quickly, and the rookie thought about requesting a reassignment after this mission because this wasn't what he dreamed of. He wanted to fight as a real inspector. The rookie then informed Captain Drago that the ship repairs were complete. Drago apologized for making them work on repairs and asked how the repairs were going. Drago replied, "We're almost done, and you can fly today." At that moment, the flying nemesis that had attacked the ship earlier appeared, terrifying Captain Edmund and the guards. Drago reassured them, "The beast isn't interested in us," and led it away from both teams. Drago commented, "I think there's a town in that direction," and Edmund said, that's excellent. These beasts tend to attack populated areas, so we're safe. The rookie was shocked and asked, are you letting the beast escape? Edmund replied, of course, who would be stupid enough to fight such a powerful creature? The rookie protested, but if you do that, the town will be destroyed. Edmund angrily retorted, that's not our problem. Our only enemy is the wizards, and we can't waste time on these beasts. Just as the rookie was about to speak, Drago intervened. There's nothing to worry about, great Captain Edmund. Drago explained, we capture wizards because they can threaten the lives of the weak, and Nemesis is very similar. We can't ignore it. Edmund argued, but our weapons aren't magically enhanced like the wizards. We can't defeat Nemesis. Drago replied, we still have our own ways of fighting. At that moment, the deputy arrived with the soldiers, ready for battle. Drago acknowledged that they might not be ready due to the time spent on repairs, but now they had a greater task. He addressed the team, our enemy is Nemesis, a terrifying foe for ordinary people like us who can't perform miracles. Honestly, I don't want to fight it either, so I can't order you to risk your lives. But the first meal you'll have after protecting the town's inhabitants will taste like heaven, much better than if we ignore the problem. The team got excited, and Edmund was frightened. Drago then ordered them to hunt the beast. Drago asked the rookie to fetch his bow and arrows, and the rookie eagerly complied. Edmund, infuriated, told his soldier, they haven't returned yet. Edmund concluded, the beast must have killed them all, which is better for us. At that moment, a soldier reported that Drago and his team had returned. Edmund was shocked, and when Drago arrived, he acknowledged Drago's accomplishment, saying, I didn't expect less from the Ocelot's eye. You drove Nemesis away without any losses. Drago responded, all we did was prevent it from flying and made it fall into the cloud sea. Edmund, now anxious, said, I'll report your victory to headquarters. Since my ship is fully repaired, I'll be leaving. At that moment, Drago aimed his arrow at Edmund's head, and Edmund asked, what are you doing? Drago replied, I'm sorry, but from now on, this ship isn't yours. The deputy released the prisoners, and Edmund asked, why did you release them? Drago explained, they don't need to be in black-silver cages. None of them are wizards. It's easy for you to capture a group of ordinary people and label them as wizards. You've built your rank on a series of false achievements. Edmund, now desperate, proposed, let's work together. I heard you're an old acquaintance of Commander Connard, right? Drago shot an arrow at Edmund's face, saying, you're also a threat to the lives of the weak. You're a disgrace to the inspection unit, worse than the monsters. I'll judge you in front of Commander Turk. No one escapes the Ocelot's eye. Edmund retorted, so the rumors are true. You've earned Commander Turk's favor. Edmund and his entire team were then arrested. Sita and Mealy strolled through the city during a surprise festival. Mealy explained, every few months, Director Majesty senses the need for one. Sita was surprised, he organizes these big festivals whenever he wants. Mealy replied, yes, there are many shops here too, which is really fun. Sita got excited, asking, there must be magical tools as well, right? Mealy confirmed, yes, let's go check them out quickly, Sita. Sita enthusiastically agreed, even the yellow cat makes amazing things. They encountered Doc, who asked, what are you talking about? He explained, he doesn't just do it whenever he wants, he does it to make more money. He wants foreign currencies and visitors, and it ensures the inspection unit can't mess with the town easily. He's deliberately maintaining the delicate situation of this place. Sita didn't understand and asked Mealy what Doc meant, but Mealy was also confused. Doc reassured them, don't worry about it. If you're going to spend money at this festival, why not enter the broom race and win the grand prize? Mealy eagerly suggested, let's find out about it, Sita. The yellow cat announced it was time to test the knowledge and skills of the academy students through the broom race, with a prize of 10 million dimes for the winner. Sita was shocked to find out there was an entry fee and asked the supervisor, really? The fees go to the town's budget? Sita lamented, I thought I could showcase my flying skills on the broom. Mealy added, but we don't have money for that. A conceited person approached and taunted, don't make me laugh. These races aren't for villagers like you. Sita asked, who are you? Mealy didn't recognize him either. The boy arrogantly responded, how can you not know me? Are you really from this city? He introduced himself, and his companions praised him as Nick, the champion of the last broom race, the son of the town's most famous residents, and known as the best among all young wizards. They kept praising him while he pretended to be modest. Sita and Mealy were puzzled, and Mealy commented, I thought Nick lets his money speak for him in order to win by any means. Nick gets angry and says to her, you must be thinking of someone else, but it's no problem. There's no girl I can't forgive. Then he turns to Seth and says, you're the new kid here named Seth, right? And there's a famous witch named Alma, isn't there? I've heard you were her student. Seth responds, you know Alma? Nick replies, just her name. She's a witch who refuses to work with Artemis because she wants to maintain her image as a solo witch. I've heard rumors, and I doubt she's strong at all. All witches must cooperate with Artemis. That's why I see her as selfish. I bet she's been running away all this time because she's weak. Seth gets angry and says, don't you dare speak ill of Alma. Alma may be harsh, quick-tempered, and seem mean, but she's the strongest, and that's a fact. Don't speak badly about her if you don't know her. Nick and his companions get scared, and Nick says, if you're so sure she's a strong witch as you say, you have to prove it as her student. Try to beat me in the race, and I'll believe you if you defeat me. Seth accepts the challenge and says, you'd better start practicing begging for mercy. Seth gets angrier and says, he's underestimating Alma. Mealy tells him, you trust Alma a lot, Seth. He responds, of course, and she asks, what was she like? Seth recalls everything he did with Alma and promises her that he will become a great wizard. Back in the present, Seth shows Mealy the magic broom and says, Alma can be very scary when she's angry and scary even when she's not. She's terrifying. Mealy laughs and says, but she must be very important to you. He replies, yes, really, that's why we must not lose, ever, for her sake. The race starts, and Seth is amazed by everyone's brooms. Many people are participating, even Mealy, who says, let's win for Alma together. Doc is standing among the competitors, frustrated because he paid their entry fees. He tells them, I bet on you, so win, or I'll kill you. The race begins, and everyone is excited. Seth races ahead of everyone, and at the last moment, the yellow cat appears with a giant vehicle in the sky, attacking them. Seth dodges the cat and destroys its vehicle. Mealy flies off, but Seth catches her, saying they must win together. At that moment, Nick's companions' brooms malfunction, and they fall. Seth saves them, but unfortunately, Nick arrives and takes first place. The announcer says that Seth gave up the race to save the competitors. The cat says the win is still a win. The first place goes to Nick. Doc gets angry and says, Seth, you didn't get the prize because you didn't cross the finish line. Seth says, I really wanted to win, and Mealy agrees. Doc gets even angrier and tells them their participation fees have been added to the debts. Mealy says, it looks like we need to start looking for work tomorrow. A strange wizard appears in the town of Sand and says he is planning another big operation this time. Doc tries to pay off all their debts so he can marry Melba and finds a mission to hunt an unidentified monster. He says, this is the only job I shouldn't accept. There's nothing more dangerous than this. I'll pretend I didn't see it and move on. At that moment, Seth and Mealy are next to him and hear him. Seth asks, tell me, Doc, did someone really send us this request? Doc replies, no one sent a request this dangerous. Mealy says, but you said it's a nemesis hunt. Doc says, you misheard. Seth says, but it's written on the paper behind you. Doc gets nervous and says, you read it wrong. He tells them it's a letter proposing to Miss Melba. At that moment, Mr. Poppery grabs the paper from Doc, and Mealy and Seth see it. Seth and Mealy decide to go and quickly kill the monster. Doc says, that's foolish. Seth responds, people are suffering because of this monster, so we need to help them quickly. Mealy says, and if we can capture it alive, we'll get a lot of money. Doc says, that's impossible. Seth asks, why not? You always complain about debts. Doc says, I haven't been feeling well these days, and I've been feeling dizzy. Mealy says, okay, we'll order you herbal tea from Miss Melba. Doc quickly silences her and says, no, I'll die of shock. Seth says, you're in perfect shape. Let's accept the monster mission quickly. Doc says, someone must have sent it to annoy us. This happens a lot these days. Seth says, but it might be real, and regular people won't be able to fight the monster. Doc says, even if the request is real, I'm sure the inspection unit will do something about it, so we shouldn't risk ourselves. Seth says it's written that the inspection unit won't do anything at all. Doc says, if you insist on going, you can go by yourselves. Seth tells Doc, you're a researcher, Doc, so help us in researching the monsters. Doc says, I refuse. I've made my decision. I won't mess with anything dangerous again. At that moment, Miss Melba grabs the request, and Doc is instantly frightened. Melba asks Seth if they are thinking of capturing the monster alive. Her father says it's difficult to kill. They think they can capture it alive, right? Seth says, yes, if the three of us work together, we can easily capture it alive. Melba tells Doc, "You're going too, Doc. That's really amazing." She says she didn't know he had a spirit of adventure. She says that it's a very compassionate act to fight battles to help people you don't know. Doc is embarrassed and says he's proud of himself because he's the kindest Artemis adventurer. She asks him, "Aren't you afraid of fighting the monster?" He fakes enthusiasm and says it might be true for someone inexperienced, but for adventurers like him, they are used to it. In the end, Duck has to go with them so he doesn't appear cowardly in front of Melba. Mealy and Seth tell Duck that he's always like this, and Duck, angry, says let's catch that monster right away and go home. Yaga meets them and says, "Yaga, the outside world is not kind, so be careful who you fight and protect before you start fighting." Seth agrees and the team sets off on their journey. We see the inspection team and Drago watching Seth from a distance, and Drago says, "Where are they going?" "There's only one place they can go from this direction." The leader calls his deputy and tells him to contact General Turk for him. Seth and Mealy are happy with the sunset, and Duck tells them to return to the ship quickly. Mealy says that people don't like witches entering their towns, and Duck says that the inspection unit is in charge here. Duck tells Seth to hide his horns well because they don't want any trouble. Seth asks about the condition of the town they're going to, and Mealy says, "I'm not dirty for sure, but it's very noisy and the smell is strong, it's from the industrial age." Seth asks Duck about the industrial age, and Duck replies, "How should I know? It was a long time ago and ended. Do I look like I'm 300 years old?" They finally arrive at the city, and Seth hears strange sounds and asks about their source. Mealy says it's the sound of industry, the city has a lot of industries. Seth asks Mealy to remind him of the name of the town, and she says it's Prosperity, but now it's known as the city that never stops roaring, Zamble. They are amazed by the city, and Mealy says it's very different from before. Duck says there's no checkpoint or anything at the entrance, so let's leave the ship here. Seth says the noise is too much and it's driving him crazy. Duck tells Seth to lower his voice, saying they'll attract attention, and the inspection unit will catch them. Seth wonders why he doesn't see anyone, and Mealy suggests they might all be eating. Duck says he doesn't know what's going on, but it's better if there's no reckless person around them. Duck says the requester, Zaida, lives on 12th Street. Seth gets excited and tells them to head to Zaida's house. Because the city is like a maze, Seth, Mealy, and Duck get lost and can't find Zaida's house. Eventually, Duck gets tired and sits down on the ground from exhaustion. Seth and Mealy tell him to take a break to rest. Mealy looks for Mr. Bowbury but can't find him and says it's terrible. He must have gotten lost in the smoky streets. Seth and Mealy decide to look for him quickly, telling Duck to rest while they go and return soon. Mealy suddenly finds him, and she runs to him, finding him very scared. At that moment, he hits her for losing him and she apologizes. Just as they're about to return to Duck, a creature passes by them quickly, and Mealy says it's the monster. Seth says it's smaller than he thought but didn't notice their presence at all. They chase it quickly. At the moment Seth decides to face the monster alone, it suddenly appears beside them and attacks Seth with strong magic. Seth is surprised by its speed, but Mealy says there are two, not one. The two monsters attack Seth and Mealy again, but they escape quickly. At that moment, Seth risks passing between the two monsters' attacks, remembering Yaga's words, and launches a powerful attack on the monsters, astonishing Mealy with its strength. Seth defeats the first one, but the second monster comes down to defend the fallen one. As Seth decides to crush both again, a person with a flute controlling the monsters appears and makes them withdraw quickly. Duck and Mealy decide they must catch the two to make Duck happy. They chase the monsters quickly, but suddenly a large number of monsters appear from everywhere, surprising Seth. Mealy is amazed and says they all seem hypnotized. Seth tells the monsters he will catch them all if they stop immediately. Suddenly, an unknown sorcerer grabs Seth and destroys his broom, saying he has one question. Seth asks who he is, and the man replies, "I am Grim." Grim asks why Seth is interested in these monsters. Seth, surprised, asks why Grim cares. Grim says he is chasing these monsters as they might be the key to the person Grim exiled many years ago. Seth says the nemesis belong to them. Grim, surprised, asks if Seth has a team and where they are. Seth says he won't explain everything to a stranger. Grim draws his weapon and tells Seth he won't repeat his question. Seth says Grim doesn't understand, and he has nothing to say. Seth attacks Grim, but Grim easily deflects it. Grim says he will disable Seth to get the answers he wants. They fight, but Grim controls the battle and easily defeats Seth. However, Seth stands up again and prepares another attack. He uses the astonishing skull attack, but Grim deflects it effortlessly. At that moment, Mealy attacks Grim, but he disappears instantly. Mealy says he couldn't have escaped unscathed. Grim reappears, asking if Mealy is part of Seth's team. They are shocked that he is unharmed. Grim says he's in a hurry and must leave, but will meet Seth again soon. Seth accuses Grim of running away, but Grim reassures him they'll meet again. The inspection unit arrives and informs their leader. On the second day, the inspection team is searching for Seth and Mealy everywhere in the city. They are hiding in a garbage bin, exhausted from the awful smell. Doc yells at Seth, saying, "Did you have to cause trouble as soon as we arrived in the city?" Seth replies, "I told you before, I was chasing the monsters when suddenly the bandaged man attacked us, and I was in big trouble." Doc asks, "Who's the idiot who's so violent at home that he gets hurt in the middle of the city?" Seth responds, "There were so many monsters." Doc, shocked, asks, "So many monsters?" Seth confirms, "Yes, more than 15 monsters." Doc, surprised, says, "That's impossible to catch them all," but then he gets excited because if he can capture all these monsters, he can pay off all his debts and marry Miss Melba. Seth tells Doc, "Let's catch the monsters quickly." Doc replies, "First, we need to talk to the customer who sent the message." Mealy suggests, "Can we get out of here first and then talk?" Meanwhile, Drago is inside Cornad Castle, saying, "Your castle is really luxurious." Cornad, or Commander Marber, asks, "What brings you here?" Drago responds, "What do you mean, what brings me here? We've known each other for a long time, but you've changed a lot, Conrad." Marber replies, "My name is Commander Marber." Drago, laughing, says, "Are you trying to scare me with your muscles? I bet you're in the gym 12 hours a day." Marber sternly says, "Put your foot down while you're talking to me." Drago, smiling, says, "That's the Conrad the First no." Marber, annoyed, says, "I'm not your commander now. You should treat me with some respect. I'm in charge here, and nothing happens here without my orders." Drago says, all right, sit down so we can talk." Marber asks again, "What brings you here?" Drago, continuing, says, "You told me to sit quietly," and then adds, "I'm chasing some wizards in this city." Marber tells him, "They might be in the poor district, maybe they're the ones who blew up the 12th building." Meanwhile, Mealy, Seth, and Doc arrive at a house, asking if the man there is Zeta. He says, "No, I'm not." Mealy threatens, "If you don't want us to destroy the house, let us in quickly." They enter and find an old woman thanking them for coming. Doc says, "We got a message that your son encountered a monster." The old woman replies, "Yes, our eldest son, Taj, was a victim of a monster." Doc asks, "Do you mean he touched it?" She confirms, "Yes." Taj appears and says, "I don't know anything about the monster." They are all surprised that he's still alive. Taj explains, "Yes, I'm still alive." Doc remarks, "You are very lucky to have encountered the monster and survived." Taj insists, "I don't know anything about the monster." The old woman asks Doc about the substance coming from Taj's mouth, if it is a curse. Doc says, "It looks like a curse." Doc asks them why the inspection unit doesn't believe them. They explain it's because they are immigrants who have been working in this city full of factories for 20 years. Taj's father says, "I don't know what they will do to our son if they find out he's infected." Taj insists, "I told you, I'm fine, I just have a cold." Seth says, "I will get rid of all the monsters." They go with Taj to show them the way to the monster. Doc asks Taj what the monster looks like. Taj says he saw a huge monster. Mealy asks about the number of monsters. Taj replies, "Only one." Mealy concludes, "It must be the original of the monsters we saw." They arrive at the location, and Taj says, "I saw it here. It was dark when it attacked me, so I didn't see it well, but its eyes were very large." Seth thanks him, and Doc says, "I feel dizzy and have smelled something awful since we came here." They reach a tree and are surprised. Mealy asks Doc if he recognizes the tree. Doc says, "Yes, I've seen it before with Melba, but it wasn't this big." Doc notes, "It has a lot of feathers." There is a big shake in the city. Doc says, "It's probably the drilling that has been going on for years, making the ground unstable." Doc gets scared and wants to leave, but Seth disagrees. The monsters appear and attack them, but they manage to capture them in the end. Each of them imagines the dreams they desire, but unfortunately, the pleasant moment doesn't last. The wizard Grimoire appears again and finishes off all the monsters. Seth tells him, "Get out of here before I beat you up until morning." Grimoire eventually leaves, and Mealy puts a mark on him so he doesn't surprise them again. Seth, Mealy, and Doc are talking while lying down. Seth is very upset with the wizard Grimoire and doesn't understand what he wants from them. Doc suggests, maybe he has something to do with the disappearances. Mealy asks Doc, "Do you mean the incidents that Mrs. Zeta wrote about?" Doc confirms, yes, many people have disappeared, and he is in pain. Mealy asks, are you still in pain? Doc replies, what happened was unexpected. I'm sorry, but I think I'll go back to Artemis. Seth, shocked, asks, what about the mission? Doc says, I'm just a coward and can't achieve anything anyway. I'll leave tomorrow, so leave me alone. Seth, after a while, asks, are you sure you want to go? Doc confirms, yes. Seth and Mealy are shocked by his reaction. Seth asks after a while, since you insist on leaving, let me ask you one question first. When we were fighting the Nemesis a while ago, I noticed a strange mark on its body. Doc, surprised, asks, what did you see? Seth explains, all monsters have marks. I've been studying them for years and still don't understand their purpose. The only thing I know is when these marks shine, it means the monsters are under the control of a wizard. Seth is astonished and asks, people can control monsters? Doc says, you could call them the enemies of humanity. We call them the Tamers. A person from the Tamers appears, playing a flute and controlling the largest number of monsters. We see a girl placing her hand on a monster, saying, welcome back, Matt. Many died today, and apologizing to the giant monster, who is crying and sad for his dead children. She tells him, after 15 years, we have finally reached this stage. All the pain will end soon. The rookie asks the deputy, how long will we remain on alert? The deputy replies, we will stay like this until new orders come from Commander Drago. The rookie says, I miss the commander's cooking. The deputy replies, you've really changed. Embarrassed, the rookie asks, who cares about that? The important thing now is that Commander Conrad is using suspicious methods here, and our commander knows that, right? The deputy says, I think so. In any case, I'm sure the commander has his own opinion on this matter. Drago is disguised and wandering in the city. A man says, a big incident happened yesterday, the theater roof collapsed at the time, which angered our hero, Commander Conrad. It must have been the immigrants. They are not only content with living in our town, but they also conspire with wizards and the infected to overthrow Ramble Town. The people are furious and say, how dare they do that? They must be behind the kidnappings too. The man says, there is now a rumor that Commander Drago, known as the Lynx Eye, is secretly visiting our town. A large-scale attack is likely to happen here because of the wizards and immigrants. The people are scared, asking, will it be like what happened 15 years ago, the collapse in the 13th district? We must not allow this tragedy to happen again. The people are more furious at the immigrants, saying, it's not enough that they took our job opportunities, let's quickly expel them from our country. We find Commander Marber standing at the castle, watching what's happening and saying, this is what's supposed to happen. Drago claps for him, saying, well done, Conrad. Marber asks, what are you talking about? Drago replies, you don't need to act foolish. All of this is happening because of you. You're the one inciting people to hunt down the sorcerers and immigrants. And soon, all it will take is a small spark to ignite Rumble City, just like what happened 15 years ago. He tells Marber, the sorcerers are just an excuse. The real threat to you is the immigrants. Marber responds angrily, my city became filthy because of them. I'll maintain the security of this country. You can call me the wall of defense. I have to get rid of those who are even more dangerous than the infected. Drago replies, that's really amazing. You think you're the king of this land, Conrad? Marber asks, whose side are you on, Drago? I'm just doing my duty as an inspector, protecting the citizens. Drago answers, citizens? You don't even consider them as people you should protect. Marber replies, of course not. To me, they're like the infected. Drago responds, this country is under your authority. I won't interfere in your affairs. But I'll tell you one thing, you're so preoccupied with the immigrants that you're ignoring the monsters moving freely in the town. So tell me, Conrad, whose side are you really on? Your answer matters as an inspector. Marber interrupts, saying, don't be ridiculous. Do you have any proof of that? Drago says, no, but I forgot to tell you something important. General Turk and the miracle workers are coming to the town tomorrow. Marber, surprised, asks, why are the miracle workers coming? Drago answers, for the same reason I came, the horned sorcerer I'm hunting. The general is worried about the trouble that boy could cause. I'm sure the general will reward you for your efforts. Conrad ponders and thinks, Drago is nosing around because he's suspicious of me. He laughs, recalling Drago's words about monsters roaming freely in the city, saying, of course not, but he's right. And tomorrow, the general and the miracle workers will arrive. If I could use a bit of force like 15 years ago, my plan will reach its final stage. He decides he'll use the sorcerers hiding in the city to start the war. Doc is on his way out when Seth asks, are you really leaving? Doc replies, of course, after seeing the bandaged man and the monster tamers, the best thing I can do is return. I'm tired of missions involving sorcerers. Millie tells him, but Doc, can't you wait until you've fully recovered before going back? Seth asks, you're just going to leave people to suffer and walk away that easily? I'm staying here. Doc answers, do whatever you want, but remember my words. There's something wrong with the inspection unit. It looks like they're deliberately ignoring the monster problem. Even if you catch Nemesis, there's no guarantee you'll get your reward. Seth responds, that's another reason not to ignore it. More people could be in danger because of monsters like Taj. That's why I'm staying. Doc replies, you're such an idiot. I don't think I can handle this anymore. He leaves, telling Seth, don't blame me if you end up dead. Kelly asks, he really left? What do we do now? Seth says, today started off terribly. Feeling hungry, he tells Millie, I'm starving right now. Millie laughs and says, let's head back to Taj's place first. Seth agrees, saying, let's go. Maybe they'll feed us. Millie jokes, I hope it's meat. They head to the house, only to find it completely destroyed. Seth searches for them, but no one is there. At that moment, a man approaches, telling them, you need to leave here quickly. Millie asks, what do you mean? The man explains, the authorities took the people who lived here. It said they let an infected person roam freely in the town. Seth and Millie are shocked, and the man adds, this morning, the inspection unit rounded up all the infected, the sorcerers, and the immigrants, accusing them of planning a terrorist attack. Seth, enraged, runs outside, with Millie trying to stop him. Meanwhile, Marber says, I'll show you the greatest tragedy you'll ever witness in your lives. People wonder what the commander's announcement will be about. Someone says, I heard he discovered the truth behind the theater terrorist incident. The commander addresses the people, saying, I know you've all been worried since the terrorist attack. But the even more terrifying truth is what I'm about to tell you. This is only the first phase of a wide-scale terrorist attack that the immigrants and sorcerers are collaborating on. The people react, asking, what do we do now? Conrad tells them, if we don't act, the tragedy from 15 years ago will repeat itself. Will you allow that? The people respond, no, we won't allow it. Conrad continues, of course, I'll help you, as the protector of the city walls, but in order to maintain balance in the town, I'll need your help. The people are confused, asking, our help? Conrad replies, yes, you can do this. Let's work together to rid our town of the filth and vermin that pollute our lives just by breathing the same air. Let's protect the town together, all of us. The people are fired up, saying, we need to go after the sorcerers and the infected. Conrad tells them, we can't show them any mercy. All we need to know is if they're one of us or an outsider. Chase down these pests and restore balance to our town. Rise up, citizens. The crowd grows more enthusiastic, while Conrad is thrilled at the success of his plan. Drago watches from afar, wishing Conrad hadn't done that, saying, you've chosen a dangerous path, Conrad. I can't just sit by and let you continue. Meanwhile, Seth and Millie search for Taj among the crowd, with Millie commenting on how terrible the situation is with people so terrified of sorcerers and immigrants. Seth responds, we can't know what they might do to Taj. Millie takes off running, while Doc, hiding in a side street, is confused about what's happening in the town. He decides to leave quickly and sees an abandoned house. Looking inside, he finds a large number of monsters and wonders why no one is doing anything about this monster nest. He becomes anxious, saying, I've decided. I'm going back to Artemis. It doesn't matter what happens here. Looking at the monsters, he mutters, this is what I expected from a coward like me. He decides to rush back home but thinks he should tell Seth first. At that moment, one of the inspection guards grabs Doc. The townspeople have caught Taj and tied him to a wooden post, chanting, let's burn this monster. Taj cries, pleading, I'm not a monster. They yell at him, shut up. Don't act like you're a normal human. Commander Conrad said this is for the good of the town, so we must do it. Seth arrives, scaring everyone away, and they plead, we were just following Commander Conrad's orders. Please have mercy on us. Seth comforts Taj, asking if he's okay. Taj smiles, saying, I'm fine. Millie tells them to get on quickly, and they move to a safer location. Conrad, watching the town from the castle, is informed by a soldier that the sorcerers are at the northern gate. Conrad orders, prepare all the cannons and aim at the northern gate. The soldier hesitates, saying, but we haven't evacuated the citizens from there. Conrad coldly responds, we don't have time for trivial matters like that. To protect our beloved country, sacrifices must be made. You understand, don't you? We attack immediately. Seth, Millie, and Taj reach a slightly safer spot, and Seth asks Taj what happened to his parents. Taj explains that the inspection unit took them because they were protecting him. Taj cries, saying, "We didn't do anything wrong, so why did all this happen?" Seth tells him, "You're right, you didn't do anything wrong. But all of this happens suddenly, and it's clear there's a specific problem." Millie adds, "This is all the work of the city guards." Seth, furious, says, "It's all Conrad's doing. I won't forgive him." The inspection unit finds Seth, Millie, and Taj, and Seth tells Millie, "We need to run quickly." At that moment, Millie transforms and says, "Why should we run? If they want to fight, then let's fight." Miley screams in anger and rushes at the guards, shouting, "I'm going to blow them all up." Seth tries to calm her down, but she won't listen. He grabs her, saying, "If I let you go, you'll attack anyone you want. They're just crazy because of their fear." Seth then says he's going to get punished, but it's Conrad who's responsible for all of this. At that moment, the inspection unit starts shelling them with artillery. Conrad addresses the sorcerers, "Listen to me, sorcerers. The inspection unit is surrounding the whole neighborhood. Surrender quickly, or we will launch a full-scale attack on you." The battle between Seth and Commander Conrad begins. The commander attacks the migrants and sorcerers, arresting them and imprisoning Miley with Doc in a cage. Seth takes on the commander, slamming him to the ground until he passes out, saying the general wants him alive. Miley tells Doc that she doesn't even have her magic staff. Doc responds, "This cage is made of black silver." Miley notices Doc is in bad shape, and he replies, "It doesn't matter, what's important is that there are monsters in the city." The commander then announces to the townspeople, while holding Seth captive, "This is the sorcerer who's controlling the monsters." Seth retorts, "You're lying. The one controlling the monsters is the beast tamer. He's the one causing all of this." The commander responds, "What we want is to make sure we don't forgive anyone who harms the city. We need some courage to get rid of these pests." The commander laughs at the crowd and traps them inside the gate, declaring he'll destroy everyone in Flasher Street. The townspeople are shocked by the betrayal. The commander orders the cannons to be prepared to destroy the entire street. At that moment, Seth strikes the commander, throwing him off the tower. Suddenly, Grim appears and helps Seth, stopping all the artillery shells. The soldiers are stunned by Grim's strength. Grim tells Seth, "Boy, we need to talk, but if you lie to me, I'll know right away." Grim treats Seth with bandages and asks him if the flute-playing beast tamer is one of his friends. Seth says, "No, I don't know her and have never met her." Seth is surprised that he feels no pain, and Grim explains that his bandages are made from a tree that grows feathers. Then, Grim throws the shells back at the soldiers, destroying them. Seth asks Grim why he's helping him, and Grim apologizes for the previous misunderstanding, explaining that he's here searching for the beast tamer. Seth asks, "You mean the flute-playing girl you were asking about earlier?" At that moment, a massive whirlwind emerges from the clock tower, and Seth is astonished by its power. The beast tamer is revealed to be the cause of all this, unleashing monsters upon the city. Seth tells Taj to hide quickly, while he and Grim will deal with the monsters. The commander comes after Seth again to confront him, saying, "Don't even think about escaping from me." Seth responds, "This isn't the time for fighting. The town is in great danger and being destroyed." The commander, coldly, replies, "Yes, I wasn't expecting such a show." The girl got ahead of herself this time, but it doesn't matter. Seth realizes that the commander is behind it all and confronts him, saying, "You're the cause of all this." The commander admits, "I've paid a heavy price for this moment." Then he tells Seth, "Now that you know everything, you must die." Meanwhile, Doc's heart stops beating, and he dies. Miley weeps over him. She hears the screams of people being attacked by monsters. Mr. Boobry brings Miley her magic staff, allowing her to break free from the cage and attack the monsters. Meanwhile, the commander launches a powerful attack at Seth, but Seth narrowly escapes. The commander says, "I was surprised when you used magic without gloves. Turns out you're weak after all." Seth seizes an opportunity to attack, but the commander counters and strikes him. Commander Drago orders his forces to stop attacking the people and focus on fighting the monsters. Drago is shocked to see Miley attacking and defeating the monsters, while he also saves her from a monster and then goes on to fight the others. The beast tamer then speaks, saying, "You seem to be in a very tight spot, but you deserve this." The people are surprised to hear a girl's voice. She continues, "Migrants, sorcerers, and monsters. This is exactly what happened 15 years ago. But if anything's missing, it's the collapse incident in Street 13. She adds, "Allow me to prepare the stage for the final scene." A strong wind begins to blow, and Grim says there's no time to waste. Seth declares that someone needs to open the gate. As the commander is about to strike Taj to prevent him from opening the gate, Seth grabs the commander's spear and tells Taj, run fast. Seth continues to fight the commander until he rips off his mustache, infuriating the commander. Taj opens the gate, and the people begin to escape. At this moment, the whirlwind blows the clock tower bell towards the people in the city. The commander is pleased because he thinks this will get rid of the migrants. The commander is shocked to find that the whole city has been destroyed. He becomes furious and asks, why is all this happening? The summoned girl laughs, and the commander asks her, what do you think you're doing, you scum? She replies, let me tell you a sad little story from the past. We flash back to 15 years ago, where the inspection unit captured a group of wounded children and created a plan to train them to kill monsters. These children, Boozy, Hans, and Greta, possess a defensive power and were warmly welcomed by the city and the people of Ramble. Later, they were imprisoned alongside brutal criminals and illegal migrants. The children spent a long time in prison, but they encouraged each other and made great efforts to survive. One day, the people began to riot, demanding that the children be gotten rid of. Naturally, the children were terrified of the shouting from outside. At that moment, a large man appeared and told them, you're not monsters. Don't worry about those stupid people outside. He played a flute to calm them and said, whenever you hear a sound that bothers you, just play this flute. The boy laughed at the man, saying, you don't know how to play it at all. The man, named Oxmer, cheered up the children. The little girl asked, who are you? And he replied, my name is Oxmer, and you can keep the flute. He told them that music has a great effect even across different languages and cultures, because a beautiful melody can bring peace to the heart. He assured them that one day, they would be able to play music together. He then suggested they start practicing right away, asking the girl to try playing. She tried and failed, and he laughed, saying, turns out you're just as bad as me. The beast tamer recalls that Oxmer's presence changed the oppressive atmosphere of the prison, even if only for a short time. But unfortunately, not everyone liked this change. Commander Conrad arrived and scared the children, telling them Oxmer had tricked them with his kindness, saying, you really are like animals. No, you're monsters. Oxmer appeared and shouted at Conrad, what do you think you're doing? Conrad, flustered, said, I was just warning them to be quiet at night. Oxmer asked him, you're Conrad, right? Why do you have a bow and arrow? Conrad replied, it's for self-defense in emergencies, sir. Oxmer retorted, I've heard about your behavior towards migrants and these children. It's causing problems. Oxmer says, these children are just like you and me. Conrad responds, are you saying I'm like the migrants and the wounded? Oxmer replies, of course, your inability to accept people different from you is what makes you weak. Conrad gets angry and asks, are you calling me weak? Oxmer calmly says, is there a problem with that? Conrad responds, no, I'm leaving now. The next day, a man pretending to be a friend opened the cell and helped the children escape. But the children were naive and didn't realize it was all part of Conrad's dirty plan. A fate worse than prison awaited them. Conrad had already spread the news of the defense forces' escape, which naturally terrified the townspeople, turning their minds immediately to killing. When Oxmer arrived to help, the children had already changed. After getting thrown back into prison and losing his friends, Oxmer tried to comfort me, crying alongside me over their deaths. But the man filled with hatred and spite, Conrad, was already plotting his next evil scheme. The day after the escape, a monster fell from the sky, and the attack threw the whole town into chaos and fear. Conrad informed Oxmer about the large number of nemesis monsters. Oxmer said, the safety of the citizens is the priority. Start evacuating quickly. Conrad responded, we can't evacuate the residents of District 13 right now. It will be safer for them to stay and avoid the monsters' attacks. Conrad asked Oxmer to send the defense forces. Oxmer replied, you idiot, it's just a child. Conrad insisted, sir, she's the only one who can stop the monster, and maybe you can lead the defense force yourself. Decide quickly, Commander. Time is running out. You need to make the right choice for the good of our people, please. Oxmer finally said, I'll assign you the mission to evacuate the citizens. As they went to execute the plan, Conrad stabbed the commander in the back, killed all the witnesses, and said, I'm doing all this for the future of the town. The girl wept over the commander's death. Conrad then declared, I'll make the monster fight the other monsters, or maybe, at that moment, the commander stood up and struck Conrad, telling the girl to run, quickly. The girl ran as fast as she could, but Conrad struck the commander again from behind, killing him this time for real. The girl cried, having lost everyone she loved, and asked, "Where am I supposed to go now?" She found the flute in front of her and remembered the commander's words. The girl played the flute, and all the monsters gathered around her. She trembled in fear and told them to stay away, but was shocked to see they didn't attack her. Instead, they treated her gently. She asked them, "Do you like music?" Eventually, the girl came to love the monsters because they were like her, outcasts, and she hugged them, saying, "No one wants you near them." At that moment, the inspection unit attacked the monsters, but the creatures took the girl and fled. The wall was destroyed, and everyone rejoiced because they were finally going to be saved. Taja's family celebrated his safety, hugging him so tightly he could hardly breathe. Commander Drago then appeared and told Seth, "There's a warrant for your arrest. Come with me quietly." Seth responded, "Is this really the right time for this?" Drago answered, "It's my job." Suddenly, the balloons holding the island in the sky started to collapse, and people panicked. Seth ran to save the city, but Drago stopped him. Seth shouted, "What are you doing? Is this the inspection unit's job, what you call protecting people? Why are you fighting?" Drago coldly replied, "You're asking why we fight? Why do you believe everything so quickly? Do you really trust what I told you earlier?" Seth declared, "Of course. I'll find Radiant and destroy it. I'm going to change this world where people are judged by their differences." Drago responded, "Then why don't you start by dealing with the beast tamer first?" Seth answered, "I'll do that whether you ask me to or not." Drago smiled and said, "Once we finish with this chaos, I'll lock you up." Elsewhere, a man was reading a report, saying, "Commander Marber helped the tamer, and there's evidence of it. This is truly concerning, especially since Drago is in charge now." Another person from the Miracle Makers team replied, "You mean Conrad? That's impossible." A girl added, "He's just an arrogant show-off. He even annoys me." Another voice chimed in my opinion, Drago is a coward and completely useless. Yet another girl said, "I'm sure the witches led Conrad astray. It's written in the books that they seduce men and make them impure." She turned to Centauri and asked, "What do you think?" Centauri was snoring, fast asleep. The girl angrily shouted at him, "You're sleeping?" He woke up and quickly apologized, saying, "In the past, I crossed the green desert while searching for Nefertiti's tomb." The girl yelled at him, "Go back to sleep and shut up." So he dozed off again, standing up. The team leader announced, "Drago says there's evidence there. We learned that the commander is General Turk, and he said, I'm sure we'll discover the truth when the time comes, but our real target is elsewhere." One member of the team was sitting at the bow of the ship, and the general asked, "Did you sense anything?" The man replied, "No, but it's strange. I'll investigate the situation myself." The general offered to go with him, but the man laughed and said, "You need to get there before the island falls," as he launched himself from the ship, speeding away. The general said, "Our top priority is the Horned Sorcerer," referring to Seth. One of the team members added, "And the rest of the sorcerers?" The general replied, "We'll send them to the Red Room." Meanwhile, Seth was racing through the city as Grimm faced off against the beast tamer, saying, "I haven't asked the important question yet," while she and her monsters attacked him. Grimm fought back with difficulty. The tamer gets enraged when her beast is struck, and the battle between them continues until he grabs her and says, "Tell me, who taught you these taming skills? Was it Behemoth or Siren? I don't feel any change in your heart rate. I'm disappointed you have no connection to them. I'm going to finish off the beasts and leave." She becomes furious and says, "As if I'll let you do that," and wounds him, causing him to flee in fear. Master Bibri wakes up Millie after she had fainted, and Millie says, "I couldn't help people anymore," and starts crying, recalling the past. Her personality shifts, and she takes down all the beasts around her. At that moment, Seth comes up behind her and says, "Watch out, you almost stabbed me," and Millie reverts to her original personality, crying and telling him that Doc is dead. Seth is confused and says, "Doc? Oh," and pulls a tiny Doc out from his clothes. He says, "Look, Doc the baby, yes, I sensed strange magic earlier, and when I got there, I found Doc on the ground, and then Doc the baby came out of him." Doc tells them his curse has emerged as shedding. Millie is thrilled and says, "You're still alive," and then Millie's staff tells them that Grimm is nearby. Grimm shows up at that moment and says to Millie, "Your tracking magic is excellent," and they are shocked. Grimm tells them, "I'm not your enemy, I just came to warn you. The tamer and her beasts are far stronger than you. You need to flee while the island is in chaos." Seth asks, "Do you think you can defeat them?" Grimm responds, "Only if I can." Seth replies, "Of course not. You just stand by and watch without doing anything," and Millie says, "I'll bind the beast's power, and you'll be able to stop the tamer." Grimm tells her, "Do you really think you can bind the beast's power?" She replies, if I use a certain item, I can, and Grimm says he has things to handle, and risking his life is not ideal, but he'll help them if they have a plan. Doc interrupts them and says, I'm just a baby, and Millie expresses concern about Master Bibri too. Grimm reassures them, don't worry, Grimm will take them to a safe place. Doc, frightened, says, I want to leave this island quickly, and at that moment, Grimm, Seth, and Millie head off to attack the tamer. The tamer decides to destroy them along with the island. A vast number of beasts attack them, and Grimm says, she still has a lot of beasts left. Seth declares, I'll finish them all off quickly, and launches a powerful skull attack, wiping them out. Grimm and Millie are amazed by Seth's incredible strength, but the tamer summons even more beasts and directs all the beasts to launch a massive attack on Seth and his companions. Just as the wind is about to overwhelm Seth, a mysterious figure calls out. Seth wakes up in an unknown place, feeling severe pain, and discovers he's in a clock tower. The man there says, I'm very surprised, and adds, it would have been bad if I hadn't increased the guards. The man is with General Turk. Seth asks, who are you? The man removes the cover from his head, revealing his horns to Seth, and says, we finally meet. Meanwhile, Millie is worried about Seth and searching for him. Grimm tells her, he's still alive, and we don't know what saved him, but I sense his heartbeat through the bandages I put on him. Millie says, if these beasts descend upon the town again, they'll definitely destroy it. Let's stick to the plan, and they go to face the tamer again, engaging in a fierce battle. At that moment, Millie traps all of the tamer's magic in the magic item, shocking the tamer. The tamer says, your friend, I killed him. Grimm responds, no, he's still alive. He insisted I not kill you. I'm not going to kill anyone else. The tamer is stunned by his words. Grimm draws out a massive, powerful sword and says, let's begin, then wipes out all the beasts. The tamer flees, and Grimm tells her, don't worry, I'm just going to kill the beasts. Meanwhile, Seth is still with the mysterious man, who says, you can call me Beadrin now. I'm just an observer, watching the mechanisms of this world. Beadrin asks Seth, what's your name? Seth replies, tell me, why are you so intent on sealing it? Beadrin says, you mean the bandage? Seth responds, that's not true. It covers the wound I got the first time I faced the beast. It keeps my curse from spreading. Beadrin says, it seems like you don't understand magic well. I can tell you don't fully control it. He asks, don't you want to be stronger? Seth, puzzled, replies, what are you talking about? Beadrin says, you're unsure whether I'm a friend or an enemy, but you need to choose, Seth. Who are you fighting for? For the weak? But they bully the afflicted and sometimes want to kill them. Or are you fighting for the afflicted? If so, you're going to have to kill anyone who stands in your way. Or are you fighting for the inspection unit? In that case, you might end up working with people like Conrad. At that moment, there's an attack outside the tower, and Seth rushes out to his friends, thanking Beadrin for saving him, even though he didn't understand a word. Beadrin says, he's quite the energetic boy, but I'll see him again soon, and adds, don't die, Seth. You're still a cherished member of my family. Grimm is fighting the tamer, and she says, you have no idea how strong the bond is between me and my siblings. Grimm is astonished and says, you managed to fit all the beasts into your scroll, and Grimm's energy starts to wane as his powerful magical sword returns to its place. Just when the tamer is about to finish off Grimm, Millie, and the entire island, Seth finally appears behind her, shocking everyone. Seth asks her, are you the one controlling the beasts? The tamer replies, you're the sorcerer who killed Conrad. He says, yes, my name is Seth. She says, I'm amazed you're still alive after falling from such a height. You must be lucky. Seth responds, it's not my time to die yet. She says, you're really dumb, and attacks him, but Seth easily dodges her strikes. She asks, tell me, what do you think you're capable of doing by coming here? Seth replies, I've come to stop you, of course. Stop talking about destroying this island already. The fierce battle between the tamer and Seth continues, and he tells her, you're talking about that dumb brute being responsible for everything. If I defeat him, then. She interrupts, and then what? You think everything will be fixed? How can you be so dumb? Do you think beating just one member of the inspection unit is enough? They pretend not to care to avoid violence, but that's not true. Those high-ranked officials describe sorcerers as afflicted and sacrifice them. They always support the inspection unit to get what they want. Seth asks, so, you want to kill everyone in town just because they act racist towards us? She replies, of course. Seth says, what's the difference between you and Conrad then? The intense battle between the tamer and Seth rages on as Seth struggles to resist her immense power, recalling the bullying he endured as a child. Meanwhile, Millie asks Grim, "Have you discovered anything new?" He replies, "Yes, this battle is over." He tells her that Seth's magic has disappeared and he stopped fighting. In a musical sense, they're playing the same tune now. Millie doesn't understand, so Grim explains that Seth has come to agree with the Tamer's perspective. Seth begins to talk with the Tamer, agreeing with her on some points, but then tells her he doesn't want to become the monster people expect him to be. He takes the scroll, throws it away, and defeats the Tamer, saving the island. The girl says, "What a cheap trick you used to deceive me. You're following your teacher's instructions to the letter." He replies, "No, that's not it at all." She asks, "Then what? You want them to execute me, or do you want to kill me yourself, just to follow their orders?" He yells at her and says, "I won't let anyone hurt you ever, and I won't hand you over to the Inquisition." She replies, "What are you going to do?" "There's nothing you can do, you idiot." He responds, "You're the idiot. What do you gain by becoming the villain?" She answers, "The problems between them and the sorcerers have existed for generations, and anyone who says otherwise is either a fool or a traitor." Seth says, "No, of course there's something more important we can do, and that's destroying the Radiant together. If we do that, then we can live together, you, me, and Alma as friends forever. What do you think?" Just as she's about to tell him that's just a dream, Seth says, "No, I started my journey for that reason alone, and we're going to change the world together." At that moment, the Miracle Workers team appears, and the fighter tells them, "You're all surrounded." Everyone is shocked and asks, "Who is this huge guy?" They see a warship, the Inquisition ship of General Torque. The townspeople cheer, "We're saved at last." The novice tells Drago, "Reinforcements from the National Army." Drago replies, "Them using a miracle from the start doesn't bode well at all." Drago feels that they are worried about something, and it might be related to Set. Grime, Mealy, Set, and the Tamer gather, and Seth asks Grime, "Is that magic?" Grime replies, "No, I'm not sensing any magic from that at all. These are the Inquisition's miracle workers." The fighter says, "Surrender and hand over the horned sorcerer quickly." The fighter accuses Seth of being a criminal, fabricating many crimes. The Tamer asks Seth, "Is what he's saying true?" Seth responds, "I don't know anything about what he's saying, but I feel like I recognize the names he mentioned." Seth says, "Old man, you're wrong." The Tamer grabs Seth and holds a sword to his throat, saying to the Inquisition, "I'll hand this boy over to you." She tells Mealy and Grime, "If you move, I'll kill you." The old fighter asks her, "Who are you?" She replies, "Hamlin." The fighter says, "The Inquisition doesn't negotiate with criminals." Hamlin understands that she's tricking the Inquisition to let them escape and tells Seth to act along with her, telling him, "You seem very important to them." She says to the Inquisition, "Promise me one thing, you'll release all the sorcerers in the prisons in exchange for handing over this boy." The old man refuses, and she says, "I expected that, so I'll ask for something else. I want you and all your comrades to die." She launches a powerful attack on him, but he blocks it easily and laughs, "That hurts, you're really strong." The girl gives Seth the scroll and tells him, "The creatures in there are my siblings, revive them," and she bids him farewell, telling him to run quickly, that she can't come with him. She faces the old man, while Grime grabs Seth and they flee. During that time, the old man finishes off Hamlin. Hamlin cries and says, "Set, change the world." At that moment, Seth becomes extremely angry and attacks Torque with great force, but one of the Inquisition team members blocks Set's attack and knocks him to the ground, telling him, "Know your place, insect." Torque tells Fawn, "Reacting so quickly isn't a good thing for an Inquisition member." Fawn responds, "General, rascals like him are dangerous. We must ensure they stay in their place." Just as Fawn is about to finish Seth off for good, Baiudran interacts with Seth at the last moment and unleashes Set's full power, leaving everyone shocked by this strength. Grime asks Mealy, "What's happening?" She replies, "I don't know, it's my first time seeing Seth like this." Fawn becomes furious as Seth injures him in the face. In the moment Fawn attacks Seth easily finishes him with a single blow. The old man attacks Seth with his magic form, but Seth also easily defeats it with a single attack. The old man says, "This boy is truly special when he's angry." He tells the two girls, "We need to rest for 2 minutes and then continue." Stones start falling on people, but Sentry saves them with his magic form. Torque watches Seth and says, "He's like a wild beast, we need to hunt him before he causes more damage." Torque activates his power and prepares to fight Seth. A fierce battle begins between Torque and Seth, but in the end, Seth overcomes him. Grime and Mealy grab Seth and quickly flee. Grime wraps Seth entirely in bandages to treat him. Mealy is worried and says, it's my first time seeing him like this. Grime tells her, there's no time for explanations, everyone's looking for us. Mealy asks, then why did we come here? Grime replies, because we need to get them back quickly. Grime pulls out a coffin and opens it, saying, these are the infected witnesses of Conrad's actions. I needed to secure them, and their lives would have been in danger. Mealy says, so you took all those people who were kidnapped to protect them. She thinks Grime is misunderstood because he always explains things in a strange way. Duck and Mr. Bopri come out, and Duck says, I don't want to be locked in that thing again. At that moment, Mealy worries about how they'll escape, with Seth and Duck in this condition. Grime tells her, there's a transport that's come for us. A flying train from Artemis arrives, and Mealy is surprised, asking, what brought it here? Meanwhile, the Inquisition helps the townspeople. Torque talks to Drago, saying, I've read Conrad's report. Drago apologizes for failing to stop the rampage. Torque says, that was my failure. You succeeded in controlling your emotions and saved the innocent. The Yellow Cat team fires balloons and fireworks to cheer up the people, and the townsfolk enjoy the scene. Meanwhile, the team escapes on the flying train, but Seth is still unconscious as they head to Artemis. Seth remembers all his friends, and Hamlin appears to him, saying, I'm sorry because of me. She cuts him off, treating him kindly, and says goodbye before walking away. Seth cries and says, I couldn't save her. I went there to capture the beast, but why did all of this happen? All I caused was plunging the island into chaos. Biodrin appears to Seth and says, what did you do to me back then? Seth replies, you were going to die, it was the only way to save you. Biodrin says, no one asked you to do that. Biodrin responds, would you have preferred to die with your friends at the hands of the miracle hunters? Seth says, I couldn't tell who my friends and enemies were at the time, and I saw images of memories I didn't know. Was that all because of you? Biodrin says, no, that was your power. It was always with you. Seth is surprised, and Biodrin continues, everything around you is a part of you. He tells Seth that there are many more parts of himself that he hasn't yet unlocked on his own, powers and memories that are still hidden. All I did was help you. Seth says, I don't understand anything, and who are you anyway? Why do you look so much like me? Could we be brothers? Biodrin says, yes, that's right. I'm your older brother. Seth is shocked and says, my older brother? Biodrin asks, you don't believe it? Seth responds, I don't know. Biodrin says, why are you so depressed? Seth says, I thought that if I hit the villains hard enough, I'd be able to solve everything. But Hamlin was different, and I couldn't do anything at the time. Biodrin replies, but you defeated Conrad in the end. Biodrin consoles Seth and bids him farewell. Back in the real world, Mealy and Duck are worried about Seth and ask each other what happened. They argue with each other, and Seth wakes up. They tell him about everyone's situation, and they are all happy. And Seth, Mealy, and Doc go to the cafe. Melba asks about Doc, causing Mealy and Doc to get flustered, and Seth pulls out baby Doc and says, yeah. Then, the puppet father says, do you mean this baby? Is this the dirty bug? Mealy replies, yeah, a lot has happened. Melba, thrilled to see Doc, says, how are you this adorable? Doc feels elated inside. Melba asks Doc, do you need your diaper changed? Don't be shy, I can change your diaper for you. Doc, deeply embarrassed that Melba might see him naked, refuses. However, he's surprised when the puppet father is the one who changes his diaper. After that, they have lunch, and Melba tells them that they are now the heroes of Rumble Town and that they are the talk of the entire academy. She shows them a newspaper with their picture on it. The article reports on Seth's heroic deeds in saving the town and defeating the villains. Then, Yellow Cat throws a party in honor of Seth the hero, and of course, the whole team is invited, including Miss Melba. Doc is quite upset, imagining Miss Melba dancing with someone else at the party since he's now so small. The team goes to the party, and Seth notices that Doc has grown in size. Mealy explains that they went to a shop and bought a growth potion so Doc could dance with Miss Melba at the party. Doc imagines dancing with Melba, and when he takes the potion, he grows only a little bit. Seth is puzzled and asks why he's still so small. Mealy explains that the potion's effects are random, and Doc reveals that he's afraid to take another dose, fearing he might turn into an old man this time. At that moment, the host takes the stage and introduces Seth, the King of Debts, on stage. The crowd at the party cheers for Seth, but Seth, unfortunately, isn't happy due to his sorrow over Hamlin. Yellow Cat brings Seth on stage, saying that before coming to Artemis, Seth was just an ordinary injured boy from a rural village. But after meeting me, the amazing Yellow Cat, he became a great hero. Yellow Cat boasts to the crowd about Set's accomplishments and says, "Let's all applaud Artemis, amazing hero." The crowd cheers for Seth again. Set, still sad, wonders, "Am I really a hero?" Yellow Cat responds, "Of course, you're the hero who freed Rumble Town." But then, Yellow Cat adds, "But that doesn't change your debts at all." Seth replies, "You're wrong. I'm not a hero at all." Yellow Cat scolds him, saying, "Small people shouldn't be humble." The crowd cheers for Seth again, and Yellow Cat asks, "So, what's your next goal?" Seth stands up and declares, "My goal is to destroy Radiant." The crowd is shocked and wonders, "Isn't that a fairy tale?" They debate whether the hero could destroy 10 or 20 Radiants, then get more excited, saying he could probably destroy 100. The crowd continues to cheer for Seth. Afterward, Seth encounters Nick the Racer, who, as usual, asks, "Do you remember me?" Seth responds, "No, I don't." Nick insists, "I'm Nick. I defeated you badly in the broom race." Seth says, "Oh yeah, I haven't seen you in a while." Nick challenges Seth to another race to see who's stronger, but Seth refuses, saying he's not interested. Nick provokes him by insulting Haimline, calling her weak and foolish. Seth becomes enraged, punches Nick, and tells him, "Don't talk about her so rudely. You have no idea what she went through to do all that. So shut up." Seth pours out all his feelings about saving the sorcerers, destroying Radiant, and the oppressed sorcerers around the world. He then asks if anyone has any information about Radiant, but as usual, no one responds. Feeling dejected, he walks away. Seth goes to Haimline's monster cage and remembers Haimline's words about how the monsters aren't evil and that he shouldn't treat them as such. Seth wonders, "These monsters aren't evil, but what should I do?" At that moment, Alma arrives and says, "Indeed, these monsters are beautiful. Their fur is so soft." Seth, shocked, asks, "What are you doing here?" Alma responds, "What, you still remember me?" and hits him on the head. She scolds him for not contacting her all this time, saying, "Do you know how much time has passed since you left? And when you see me, you don't greet me properly? Has your head gotten even emptier?" Seth apologizes. Alma continues, "If it weren't for that girl named Mealy, I wouldn't have known what happened to you." Seth is confused and asks, "Mealy?" Alma replies, "Yeah, Mealy was really worried about you, afraid you wouldn't regain your senses." Seth explains everything that happened, saying he isn't a hero because he couldn't protect Haimline. Alma hits him and hands him a letter from Taj, thanking him. The members of the Miracles team learn about all the horrible things Conrad did, calling it a real disgrace that has undermined people's trust in the Inquisition. They criticize Conrad, and General Turk says, "We'll deploy our forces in Safandar." The team is thrilled and says, "Finally, we'll be rid of those filthy mage knights." They discuss their situation and how they should deal with Fawn, who was imprisoned for disobeying orders, and Drago, and whether they'll actually go to war. Later, the novice complains that the authorities took all the provisions from the ship. Drago, feeling responsible for everything that happened in the town, says, "If it weren't for the commander's decision, we wouldn't have been able to save all those lives." The team lands on an island to gather supplies, and the deputy mentions a monster called the Mountain Rabbit. The novice confidently states, catching that monster should be easy for the commander with his bow. But then we see the team running away from the giant rabbit. The commander wonders, how is all of this caused by just a rabbit? At that moment, Drago shoots an arrow at the rabbit, injuring it and causing it to flee at high speed. The soldiers sigh in relief, and Drago says that capturing that rabbit will be very troublesome. The soldiers ask the deputy, "Is there nothing else we can hunt?" He replies, "What about a creature called the giant boar?" The novice, exasperated, says, "That one's going to be huge too." The commander reassures them, "I'm sure we'll find something else before nightfall." Meanwhile, Beadrin talks to Turk, asking him, "What kind of person is Drago?" Turk replies, "He's an excellent man. He believes in justice and order that must be upheld." Beadrin responds, "He seems a lot like you." Turk disagrees, "Not at all. We're nothing alike." He doesn't believe he can change the world through his own power, which is why he always stayed in his position. Beadrin remarks, "You're obviously the opposite, then." Turk agrees, "Definitely. I want a world where people are free to do what they want, just like I want." Drago's team has gathered as much food as they can from the forest, but it's still too little, so Drago is forced to request supplies from neighboring countries. The novice tells the deputy, "That should solve the problem, but what happens if those countries refuse to help us?" At that moment, Drago enters, and the deputy asks him for news. The commander says, "I was expecting this, guys, but we're in serious trouble." The soldiers are shocked, and the commander continues, not a single country wants to help us. The team is baffled and asks, why not? Drago explains that it's due to the damage caused by the loss of trust in the Inquisition. The novice angrily states, this is all because of Commander Conrad. We've been trying to clean up the mess. Drago responds, it doesn't matter. In the eyes of the people, what one member of the Inquisition does applies to all of us. The novice, frustrated, exclaims, that's not fair. The soldiers are all tense, and the commander says, we have to find a solution somehow. After some time, the novice comes to the commander, who asks, is there something you need? The novice responds, I've been anxious about what's going to happen and what we're going to do. I know we're fighting to help people, unlike Commander Conrad. And they continue discussing their principles, so the leader says, I don't believe that a single person can change the world. I'm not like the two-horned boy who's looking for an imaginary land. Our only choice is to put in as much effort as we can. At that moment, the novice gets an idea and tells the leader he has a plan to secure food. After a while, we find the leader in his office. The deputy and the novice enter and ask about the result. The leader tells them that they agreed to supply them with food. They rejoice, saying, we succeeded, leader. He responds, your advice was spot on. And we learn that they asked the village they saved from the monster for help, and the village agreed. The novice says, we survived because you saved that town, leader. Then we cut to Mealy, Alma, and Seth sitting in the cafe. Mealy welcomes Alma and thanks her for caring about Seth. Doc is still terrified of Alma and doesn't know how to deal with her. Seth says that Doc has helped him a lot. Doc replies, I'm not helping you because I want to. I'm drowning in debt because of you. Mealy serves them coffee, and they are shocked by how weak it is. They learn it's because of ink coffee, which uses extremely expensive beans. Alma explains that it's due to what happened in Rumble Town. Seth is confused and asks, what does that have to do with coffee? Doc and Alma explain the situation to Seth. Doc is very upset about the lack of coffee and goes to see Davy, the squid, who's in bad shape because of it. Seth wants to save Davy, and he's also hungry and wants to eat him. Mealy says, we can't eat our friends. They search for coffee beans quickly and finally get the coffee for Davy. Doc tastes the coffee and finds it's just ink. Seth keeps bringing him the wrong beans, and Doc yells at him. Finally, Seth gets the right coffee, and Doc gives it to Davy. Doc then discovers that Seth got the beans from the yellow cat, adding 100 million to their debt just for coffee. Doc passes out, and Mealy says, it looks like Doc is dying. Then we cut back to Drago's inspection team. The whole team is overjoyed by the delicious food the leader prepared. The novice asks about the leader, and the leader is standing outside alone. The deputy soldier says, is that a summons from headquarters? Drago responds, it's from General Torque himself, actually. The leader tells the deputy, you'll be in charge after I'm gone, and tell the team that any decision you make is my decision. The deputy is surprised and asks, will you bear all the punishment alone? Drago says, why are you so worried? I'll come back alive. I hesitated because I was concerned about all of you, but it turns out I had no reason to worry. The novice overhears this from the side and starts crying because the leader is leaving. The next day, Seth goes to buy a new broom for Mealy and finds it very expensive. Alma shows up and asks why he's buying a broom. He says it's for Mealy. Then they walk down the street, and she asks, how can you make a girl worry about you like that? Seth responds, I know how to use magic well, and tries to use it but fails. Alma says, stop fooling around, let's go. Seth is confused and asks, where are we going? She says, didn't I tell you? We're going to Yaga's house. He asks, what do you want to talk about there? She says, it's related to Radiant. They go to Yaga's and find a note saying, please don't look for me. Alma gets angry and says, that old man is trying to avoid seeing me about the Dread Daddy. Seth asks, why? Aren't you friends? She replies, that old fool is always afraid of me. Alma takes the note and reads it, finding that it says, Alma, I haven't seen you in a long time, but when you read this, I won't be here. Alma gets even angrier and finds another part of the note saying, send Seth to Castle Merlin. The local knights and wizards there are looking for Radiant. Seth is puzzled about the town, so Alma explains, it's the capital of Sephander, a land on the neighboring continent. She also tells him that the Inquisitors are still chasing wizards there as well. Seth says, they're chasing wizards for nothing? I won't allow that. Alma reads that Seth has matured a lot. He's still foolish, but he'll find the answer once he walks the right path. Alma zones out while reading the letter, and Seth asks, is everything okay? She tells him, don't worry, he said the rest is up to you, and explains that it means he should just do what he feels is right. Seth goes to Doc and Mealy to ask them to come with him to the new town. Doc objects and asks, what makes you think I'd come with you? Seth replies that the Inquisitors will do terrible things there. Doc refuses, so Seth says, weren't we all going to look for Radiant together? They argue, but Mealy says she will go with Seth. Doc tells her, Mealy, you're my assistant. She replies, I won't let Seth face danger alone. They continue arguing until Mealy leaves, upset. Seth says, weren't you our friend? Doc replies, we were lucky to come back alive last time. Now you want to fight another miracle maker? You really want to put Mealy's life in danger again? Seth thinks about the problems he's faced lately. Suddenly, the yellow cat appears in front of him and asks, why are you depressed, Det King? Is the new debt 100 million or a billion? The cat mocks him, asking if he's heading to Castle Merlin. Seth is surprised and asks, how did you know? The cat responds, don't underestimate the King of Artemis. I can guess what a simple boy like you will do. Seth asks, is Castle Merlin a dangerous place? The cat replies, there's no safe place for wizards except Artemis. The world is a tough place for wizards. Seth asks, why do they call us infected and bully us? The cat explains, you've seen for yourself. People fear anything that's not like them. The cat then demands Seth pay off his debts, but Alma interrupts, saying, I see you're as greedy as ever. The cat laughs and says, have you decided to return home finally? Alma responds, this city isn't my home. The cat says, Artemis is a safe home for all wizards. Then the cat tells Seth, you'd better come back safely to pay your debts, Det King. The cat continues teasing Seth, trying to provoke him. Suddenly, the alarm sounds, and monster eggs start falling from the sky in large numbers. The cat says, it looks like the city has entered the danger zone. Alma sarcastically asks, is this the safe city you were talking about? The cat activates the city's protective barrier and orders the wizards to fight off the eggs. The battle between the monsters and the wizards begins. Doc comes running, telling Seth that Mealy went to gather mushrooms on the hill in the island. At that moment, Seth grabs a broom from Nick, knocking him down, and rushes off to Mealy. A monster lands near Mealy, and she's shocked as it attacks her, but she quickly dodges. Just as the monster is about to eat Mealy, Seth saves her at the last second. Seth checks on Mealy and Mr. Boobrie, and they flee from the monster, but it quickly catches up and fires at them. Seth dodges the attack. Mealy then attacks the monster, knocking it into the lake. Just as the monster is about to attack Mealy, Seth remembers Haimline, rushes to Mealy, and pushes her out of the way, letting the monster grab him instead. The monster drags Seth into the lake. Seth loses consciousness, and his sealed power unleashes again, destroying the monster with one massive attack. Alma senses a sinister feeling from the release of Seth's true power. Seth regains consciousness and is sad that he lost control again. Grimm says that Seth's power is truly terrifying and dangerous and that he needs to investigate this matter himself. The next day, Seth leaves farewell letters for all his friends and sets off on a new journey alone because it's going to be a truly dangerous journey.